We are now a little over 2.5 weeks away from the NFL draft. We have covered my top 12 rookies in this class in one quarterback leagues. We've covered my top 5 rookie quarterbacks in this class. We've even covered some late round guys that I am targeting and fading in this rookie class from rounds 2 through 4. So I think with all that being said, I think it's time that we hop into a rookie mock draft and we continue on with the tradition that we did last year, where every single Tuesday from here until basically June or even July is going to be a rookie mock of some sort. And today what we're going to do is run through a 12-person, 4-round rookie mock draft from a standard one quarterback league. We'll hit on Superflex later on, but I think as of right now, a one quarterback league is going to be best to talk about a lot of other players that aren't necessarily quarterbacks. So let's get into the mock. We're using fantasymocks.com, which is the same website that we used last year. Just an amazing little resource to be able to quickly run through mock drafts. You can pick whatever slot you want. You can click on multiple slots if you have multiple first round picks or do anything like that, and just go and be able to quickly do a rookie mock draft using either the standard or Superflex, or you could do a Dynasty doing one quarterback or Superflex Dynasty drafts as well. And the ADP is all just basically calculated from a bunch of different sources, and it also utilizes your picks for future drafts as well. So the algorithm gets a little bit smarter there. So I'm picking here at the 1.05. The way it went was Treylon Burks, and then the 3 running backs, Breece Hall, Isaiah Spiller, and Kenneth Walker. That order, you could argue the order, but I feel like in most cases, this will probably end up being how the order goes if you are sitting at the 1.05 in one quarterback leagues, depending on where Isaiah Spiller actually gets end up. But I feel like you can for sure say that Breece Hall, Treylon Burks, and Kenneth Walker are all gone and off the board. So if you want, you could take Isaiah Spiller here, depending on where he actually ends up going, or you could end up taking my wide receiver 1 and a guy that I am super excited about in this class if he does fall to you at the 1.05, which is a benefit. And one of the biggest reasons why I love Drake London is the fact that he is my wide receiver 1, but he's not being valued as the wide receiver 1. So most teams are going to be able to draft him in that mid first round range in one quarterback leagues, and potentially even later in Superflex leagues when you get quarterbacks thrown in here as well. So I'm picking Drake London. I absolutely love that pick as my wide receiver 1, a guy that hits on what I presume will be every single marker that I am looking for at the wide receiver position. He's got the size, he's got the production. He just looks overall super fantastic from a fantasy standpoint and from a prospect standpoint. And if he is the potential first wide receiver off the board, no matter where that ends up going, I do expect that to be a pretty good landing spot for him to grow and mature with a young quarterback, or potentially even be the wide receiver 1 on any team with volume. So here at my pick at 2.05, we can kind of scroll through who we have on the board here. Running backs, Jerome Ford, Brian Robinson, Zamir White. You got Matt Corral at quarterback, and then a bunch of other wide receivers like Justin Ross, Christian Watson, Wandale Moore. I feel like a lot of people would just automatically pick Christian Watson here just with the fact that he is potentially a first-round pick in the NFL draft. I am not a Christian Watson guy. I don't get it. I highlighted him in my video about fades and targets in later rounds of rookie drafts as a guy that I'm completely fading in rookie drafts this year because I just do not understand the profile whatsoever and the love for Christian Watson. So I'm avoiding him because I do view him as a landmine. But the problem here is that there are not a lot of other options to go with because you're basically looking at a bunch of day 3 wide receivers, as I expect Ford and Brian Robinson to probably be day 3 guys. You got Wandale Robinson, who's like small for his height and weight and even for the speed. I'm not taking a quarterback here because I don't know anything really about this quarterback class, and I don't like taking quarterbacks in the early second in one quarterback leagues. So it might actually end up being Christian Watson, but I'm actually just going to pivot to the other guy. I'm just going to go with the running back that I believe is going to get day 2 draft capital in Zamir White. I actually highlighted Zamir White as a guy that I am fading in rookie drafts as well, just because he didn't hit on a lot of the markers that I'm looking for. Most of the markers that he hit on were actually all athletic measurables just from his size and speed. And he didn't hit on any of the production ones that I'm looking for because he split time at Georgia on top of 2 ACL injuries before he even started playing at Georgia. So I just don't really want Zamir White all that much. But here at the 2.05, this is probably where I would end up being trading into more of the first round if I compare the 2.05 with another player to get up into the first round, to get up here into this back end of the first for some of these wide receivers, or take my 2.05, kick it down the road to 2023, trade back so I can get more adequate ADP for some of these other players that I would be targeting. Guys like Jerome Ford, Brian Robinson, Tyler Algier. If they were to fall into the later second or even the third round, I'd be much more inclined to take that pick and do that kind of move. But I'm just going to go with Zamir White here because I do think that he gets the draft capital. And I like, just the shot on taking a running back there at that 2.05. So we're up again at the 3.05. And again, a lot of running backs and wide receivers have gone off the board. You can now see that we are 4 quarterbacks deep with Matt Corral, Sam Howell, and Kenny Pickett all off the board as well. So we're just back into this kind of weird range of a bunch of day 3 running backs, maybe even day 3 wide receivers. Probably going to go against ADP, but at this point, I mean, you're really just taking your guy, and ADP kind of gets thrown out the window in these mid-third and on kind of range, to where I don't really see anybody that I'm really all that in love with. I think Tyler Beatty is kind of interesting. I think Alec Pierce is kind of interesting as well. I like some of these running backs like Dameon Pierce if he goes somewhere, John Mechie maybe potentially. But the guy that I'm going to go with here is actually Khalil Shakir, who, at least as of right now, I expect Drake London to separate with his pro day 40-time performance. But as of right now, there is a handful of wide receivers at the top hitting on 9 out of 12 markers that I'm looking for. And Khalil Shakir is one of those guys. He's been gaining a lot of hype ever since the Senior Bowl, ever since the Combine. He's had a fantastic pre-draft process to really bump up his potential draft stock. I've even seen mock drafts where he's even taken in the second round, which I think would be fantastic. He's been comped to Cooper Kupp by JJ Zacharyson, and JJ Zacharyson has also mentioned how much he loves Khalil Shakir, or at least how much his model loves Khalil Shakir. But his ADP has still stayed in this back-end third and even fourth round range of rookie drafts. He's been a guy that is my auto fourth round pick, and when I have him in that third round in this back end where I don't really like anybody else, I'm probably going to end up taking a lot of Khalil Shakir, even though my normal strategy for back end of the rookie drafts in third and fourth rounds is taking those running backs. But I just want to take that shot on Khalil Shakir's prospect profile and hope that he lands in a good spot, at least right now. We can reevaluate after the NFL draft to see where he's actually taken, but I love the prospect of Khalil Shakir here at the 3.05. So 4.05 here, we're actually going to do a 5-round mock here. So 4.05, we are just taking dart throws at this point. And this is really where I like to take these rookie running backs who could potentially, ascend depth charts due to injury, due to potentially them being better than players above them, or like 35-year-old veterans running backs above them. This is where I really like to take Elijah Mitchell last year. And this is kind of the same situation where I'm just going to be grabbing a running back that I really like in terms of a prospect profile, in terms of draft capital, potential depth chart, ease to climb the depth chart, all that kind of stuff. The number one guy that I've been really watching in this fourth round, and is going to basically be my auto fourth round pick if I can't get Khalil Shakir, or I took him in the third round like I did here, this guy is going to be Keaontay Ingram out of USC. I really like Keaontay Ingram and just his profile overall. He hit on a lot of the markers that I'm looking for, both in production, in size, in speed. He hit on a lot of that kind of stuff. And he's a day 3 pick. He honestly might not even be drafted, which is not going to be on my radar anymore if he's not drafted. But if he is a round 6, even a round 7 kind of guy, I'm going to be taking a shot on Keaontay Ingram in this 4th round range. And even if you're doing a 5-rounder, you might even be able to get him in the 5th round as well. But I really like Keaontay Ingram as my super late dart throw in rookie drafts this year. And he's probably, like I said, going to be my auto 4th round pick every single time that I either didn't get Khalil Shakir or I got Khalil Shakir earlier in the draft like I did here. So finally here at the 5.05, I'm going to take another dart throw. And this one, honestly, I don't really view this as a dart throw. I think it's kind of weird that he's down here. I expect him to be much higher, potentially even a 3rd round pick or maybe even a 4th round pick, which is where he's at in DLF ADP. But Greg Dulcich is actually really interesting because I do think that he and Trey McBride are the 2 guys that have the potential to be day 2 picks in the NFL draft with a really strong athletic profile. And that's basically all I'm looking for from the tight end position, is guys that are athletic with some draft capital, because those are basically the only predictive measures that we have for tight ends, rookie tight ends entering the NFL, because tight end position is just so hard for fantasy football. And it's really run by that top, 3, 4, 5 guys that if you don't have one of those guys, they're all kind of basically the same. So if I can get a shot on a guy like Greg Dulcich, who I believe could have that athleticism and the draft capital, just the a potential to be the next kind of Mark Andrews or George Kittle kind of guy coming out of UCLA. I really, really like that upside there, especially as he's the tight end 5 off the board here. I would actually expect him to climb a little bit, potentially be a 3rd round pick, even a 4th round pick as a tight end 2 or 3 in this class. Like I said, I really only think it's Trey McBride and Greg Dulcich. So that's basically where I'm at right here. And I'm really happy grabbing him in the 5th round here at the 5.05 to close out my draft. So I ended up going with Drake London, Zamir White, Khalil Shakir, Keaontay Ingram, and Greg Dulcich as my 5 picks in this draft. That's probably honestly going to be a super ideal version. And you might see me, kind of use the same kind of players every single time that we do this mock on Tuesdays, just drafting these same kind of guys, especially in the later rounds where the ADP could just be so wild and you really have no idea how other people value later round players, and ADP kind of gets thrown out the window. You just grab your guy. I'm just going to be grabbing a whole bunch of Khalil Shakir and Keaontay Ingram until I'm basically told not to by the NFL. So that's the first rookie mock draft of the season in this 5-round, 1 quarterback league. I will be doing a Superflex one next week, like I said, so be sure to stick around and stay tuned for that. If you are not subscribed yet to this channel, I invite you to subscribe. Hit a like on this video if you appreciate this kind of content and want to see some more mock drafts. Leave a comment down below if you would have taken any other players differently than what I have, or if you agree with any of the players that I ended up taking. So with all that being said, guys, thank you all so much for watching. We'll catch y'all later.